You're listening to the Empowered Woman, Badass and Unfiltered podcast, a place for inspiration, empowerment, and personal development, showcasing badass women from all over the world, giving tips on personal development, mindset, and healing. I'm your host, Olivia, transformational success coach for spiritual female entrepreneurs. Now let's dive into this episode. Welcome back to the Empowered Woman, Badass and Unfiltered podcast. Your host, Olivia here. And I just want to talk to you about loving your authentic self, being comfortable being your authentic self. And I found that over the years, it's not as complicated as we think it is. In actuality, it's a lot more simple, but our brains just like to complicate shit. So that's what we do. In actuality, it's not even necessary. I found that the most important thing for us to do is love ourselves unconditionally. And in order to love yourself unconditionally, you have to own the good, the bad, and the ugly parts of yourself. The parts that you don't even admit to yourself all the time. I think you are always becoming, you are always evolving, and loving yourself and giving yourself grace through the process of your evolution is a requirement. Now, being around other people and being your authentic self and owning your authentic self, it starts with you. And then standing up for yourself with those that you're around. Now, if you're a people pleaser, this is real hard for you. This is real hard for you. And I know as a recovering people pleaser, and I think, there's a lot of reasons because I'm an empath. There's a lot of reasons that empaths that are people pleasers are the way they are. And it's a form of manipulation. We think that because we're we're helping other people feel better, that we're going to feel better and we're going to feel less drained by their moods, but learning to detach from the feelings of others, to be comfortable with ourselves and who we are, regardless of what other people got going on, and not to take on the energy that we feel around us, but to stand secure in the ones that we have. That's a whole nother skill, a whole nother journey in itself. That's a journey that I do help my clients with, but just for the podcast purposes, this is going to be very general because I don't know your specific situation. So when it comes to being your authentic self, first starts with loving who you are, and then being comfortable being who you are around the people in your life, and not succumbing to their opinions and their feelings about who you are, because none of that matters. You're an always evolving person, right? So you're not always going to be the same, nor will you always be in relationship with everybody in your life. We only have people for seasons. Those seasons might be 5 years, a few months. So a few people last a lifetime, but it's only their lifetime or ours, because at some point in our life, we will have to be without them. So when you are by yourself and you are all you have, you've got to be comfortable with being the person that you are and that you're continuously becoming. So it first starts with that love for yourself. And then, when you're facing the things that you've been avoiding, like the unauthentic truths of you, the things you pretend, the things that you avoid, when you start facing those things, it's not comfortable. It's actually it's a whole annoying process that you go through multiple times throughout your life. And giving yourself grace and loving yourself through the process is key. Absolutely key. There's all of these things out there about authenticity. And I feel like people just sharing their vulnerability that does are like what they think is vulnerable isn't necessarily authentic. It might just be trying to connect with people on a weird level, like almost in a victimhood mentality, but more manipulative. That's not everybody. That ain't everybody. I do identify as an authentic person, and I love having authentic conversations with people. But I think that the way that the word is tossed around in our society, and I've seen people use it, when I just don't like when people don't give specifics, like actual specifics of their specific situation. Okay, so you healed from what trauma? What was that trauma? Oh, from abuse in my childhood. And I understand that everybody's not as open as I am. I understand that you don't, and I'm not saying you have to be so open and sharing out all of the things to the world, but if you're going to speak on something to help others, you've got to own all of who you are, the good, the bad, the ugly, the parts you've been avoiding. Most importantly, love yourself through the parts that you avoid, the shame, the guilt that you have for mistakes you've made in your life. Love yourself. That's where it starts. Stop waiting on you to achieve a certain level of success. Don't wait for you to accomplish a certain amount of task in a day for you to love yourself. Are you putting conditions to the love that you give yourself? Because you will never be able to be yourself if you're always altering yourself because you don't love yourself. I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that it made you think. I hope that you own all of the parts of yourself. And until next week, go out and be a badass. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Empowered Woman, Badass and Unfiltered podcast. If you found any value in this, please consider sharing and subscribing. Now go out and be a badass.